this computer. Right, we're on. Fine. Right, buddy, this is Jazz Carlin. I'll let her introduce herself. We've just started working together. Jazz, how are you?
Yes, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Living the dream, the lockdown dream. I've got the light literally above my bald head and it looks like I've got a halo on it, so I'm going to pretend that I haven't. They're so bad at it. Yeah, got to be careful of sunburn out here, for sure. How's life at home? What's going on?
Yeah, it's good. It's not too bad. Just trying to get some structure, and as much as people say it, and it kind of sounds quite boring now, everyone says routine and structure and focus. For me, it's really helped. And obviously coming from being an athlete, that's what your lifestyle is like. And I guess stepping away from sport, and now I'm retired, and no longer competing, it's like I still find that structure and routine really useful in my day-to-day life. But yeah, I'm doing okay, finding it okay. Some days struggle more than others, which I think is completely normal, and I think a lot of people feel in that way. So trying to stay positive and kind of just take each week as it is. But yeah, just trying to set myself little goals each week, fitness goals, business goals, different things to mix it up, really.
Wicked. Well, for people who obviously in the swimming world, you're a big deal, but for guys and girls who are young people who don't know who you are, let's go through your previous and some of the things that you've accomplished, and we'll go through talking about your mindset as an athlete around those times, and then we'll go on to your sort of experiences and your mission currently, obviously with your new business and of retiring from swimming, how that's going. So from we'll start from when you just literally qualified. If everyone doesn't know, Jazz is obviously an elite level professional swimmer by trade. Won 2 Olympic medals. Is that right? 2 in Rio. Yeah. She won gold in the Commonwealth Games. But I think if we start when you first started, when you were a youth athlete, a young, I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to enjoy calling you Welsh, but a young Welsh athlete. What was your experience like when you first got into sort of elite level swimming, rather than just coming from a swim club background?
Yeah, it's weird. From a young age, I always loved being in the water. I loved swimming. I just joined a local learn to swim program, which was at a swim club. So that's really where it started. And then just progressed through the squads. I think I always had this just love, and when it came to racing, I just absolutely loved it. It was like my favourite time. Always been quite highly competitive. I think my dad brought a lot of that out of me. He'd make things competition, chasing him around the park or doing this or doing that. I was naturally quite competitive as well. So always enjoyed the racing, but from a young age, wasn't the strongest in the pool, wasn't the best in my age group and all that kind of stuff. I try and tell kids all the time that I definitely wasn't the best in my age group at a young age. And even going on programs, going away on training camps, coaches will always be, you need to change this, you need to change that, you need to do better turns, your technique needs to be better. Always telling me things that I needed to do better and I needed to train more. So it's quite like demoralizing when you're going away on training camps and the coaches are literally just telling you that you need to completely change your stroke.
yeah.
More and all this. But I guess naturally just still had that real drive, determination every time I raced. And even in training, I used to love chasing the older boys in the pool. They probably didn't enjoy it as much, but yeah.
That's objective.
Yeah, so it really kind of started from there. At the age of 16, I kind of had a decision. I hadn't actually improved for a couple of years, and I got offered the opportunity to move to Swansea, away from home, and join a program there. And it was a distance coach. It was moving there from America, and he'd coach the former world record holder Janet Evans, which is in my event. So I kind of had this opportunity and had to weigh it up, really, whether I wanted to move away from home, my friends, do my A-levels away from home, and kind of uproot my whole life, really, as a youngster, which was really daunting. But I just wanted to give it a go. I just wanted to see. I never knew or didn't know if I was going to make it in the sport. I didn't know where the sport was going to take me, but I thought if I just give it a chance and see what happens, you actually never know what will happen. So at that age, I think you soon realize how much your family does for you, and having to cook, clean, everything for yourself. It's a bit of a shock, really, but I think it definitely made me grow up so fast. And training around senior athletes, just being surrounded by kind of professionals, you soon realize what you've got to do, what you've got to be like, how you've got to present yourself, how you've got to turn up to training early, how you've got to do all these things right to just even get close to making some of these teams. So I guess I had a lot of people to kind of learn from, look up to, had a great coach. And yeah, that's really where it kind of started to begin. And then I made my first senior team on a relay in 2009 when I was 18. So I was part of a 4x200 meter freestyle relay with Rebecca Adlington, Caitlin McClatchy and Jo Jackson. And these girls were all like distinguished, like won medals,
big dogs,
like world championships, and then my first ever GB senior team, turning up like, oh my God, like I'm the weak leg here. But I dropped 2 seconds from my time, and we came away with a bronze medal. So I actually had like this swim in my life, which is one of my favourite memories, actually. I always loved a relay. So that's really where it all began.
It's super interesting you said about how, like, from obviously a big part of what I'm getting into now is leadership and sort of the environment you put yourselves in. As a professional, that you said that you had a huge sacrifice, which is not just for you, but was for your family as well, which is obviously one of your driving factors. But from the main point I've written down on this is raising your standard, because like you said, you've changed your environment to better yourself, which was very uncomfortable, only because you've gone into a room full of, it's like big fish, small pond syndrome. You've suddenly gone into a massive pond with a lot of fish, and you suddenly realize, oh my God, I need to, and if anyone doesn't understand that 2 seconds off a race time is a long time. Think of a 100 meter sprint running rather than swimming. That is, I mean, I'll be drowning then, but that is a massive, and being in that. So what if you were a youth athlete now, what would you say was the determining factor of pre-race nerves? It's a huge one that I hear a lot of with, it's not just swimming, rugby, tennis, all these young kids that are under huge pressure, and that's top end pressure. This is like elite level pressure. What was your go-to your mindset, or your the way that you got through that and performing?
Yeah, for me, I always just wanted to do my best. I always just wanted to give it my best. And I think even looking back now, it's like if you do your best, that's actually all you can ask for yourself. And your best on the day might not be quite what you'd want right now. But if you do your best, you know you've done your best, and it can just change things for next time. But yeah, so I didn't actually improve from the age of 14 to 17. And that's like turning up to competitions and not swimming a best time. And sometimes I'd be not even close to my best times. I'd be miles off. And I think at a young age, there's a lot going on. I got a lot taller. My body shape had completely changed. Obviously, start your period as a young girl as well.
Your weird hormones.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at that age. But also, my dad actually suffered a stroke when I was 14. So he was in hospital for 6 weeks. So obviously trying to swim, train, do schoolwork. My dad was in hospital an hour away. So I had a lot of different things going on, but the youngsters of today, they have so much going on. There's so many different pressures. And there's a lot of things that can actually affect and alter your performance and maybe not give you the results you'd hope for. So I think it's about being patient and also setting yourself goals, targets, and realistic ones, and just doing your best. For me, even when I got to the top level, one of the things I used to really work with nerves is when I did a good swimming session or whatever in the lead up to the competition, say a few months before, I'd write it down in a little book. Or my coach said, oh, your stroke looks great today. Or I did a best time on a pool set or whatever, or race pace felt really easy. And I'd write it down in this little book. So then when you get to a competition, you've got kind of this little booklet full of notes and positive things that you've done over the past few months. Because I think our brains naturally always want to just kind of be like, oh, what if it goes wrong? What if I swim really badly? All these kind of negative thoughts. But really, if you bring it back down to the facts and things that you have done so well over the past few months, it actually just gives you the belief and think, oh, I should have confidence because I've done all these things so well, and I'm going to do my best. That's all I can ask for myself. So I think mixture of things really, but nerves is really common. And I used to think nerves are something that means I'm actually really excited and ready to race. Use the nerves to try and help me swim faster. So I always used to see it in that way, really.
Awesome. Like that positive reinforcement. I mean, I think people, it's funny how, like you said, mentioned about how your natural subconscious is going to look at a negative situation. Like you said, I'm in a massive meet with the big dogs are swimming. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but you've done something that I think a lot of people who are not just athletes, but who need to do now is you put a pen on paper as a positive reinforcement. I think it's very powerful. I mean, I used to do similar more, but I do a lot more now is I write everything out on notebooks everywhere. And I have certain ones for certain things because it does give you a system and a guide to back yourself. It's like if you're in the gym and you write down your sessions, you know, if you're progressing, you can see you've got it in the tank. It's very, from a high level perspective, it's amazing to hear that you still did that at a young age of still something so simple, but it's such a huge part between your ears is going to dictate whether you're going to swim faster in that 2 seconds or whether you're going to flop. And I think like for youth, for young kids to learn that it's not just on an iPad anymore, having a pen and paper and something by your bed that you can actually talk, it's more positive reinforcement for yourself. It could massively help kids deal with pressure, not just from a swim perspective, but I think from something bigger than that. And then moving forward from that positive, you then fell sick, had glandular fever. You were reading on talking to you before. Do you want to go through how you dealt with? I mean, obviously that's a huge blow, yeah. Like it's something physical, which is not like you haven't had. How do you say? It's not your fault. It's one of those things that happens, but it's obviously put a huge stop onto that part of your career. What was your mindset whilst it was happening, and how did you deal with it? And then what was your mindset going back into training before all the big stuff happened?
Yeah, I think obviously, well, I found out, so the year before the London 2012 Olympics, we just finished the British trials, which were for the World Championships, and I swam really well. I had a great competition with swimming best times, and then it was about 6 weeks later, I didn't feel right. It was just more tired than normal. I know being an athlete is quite hard because you are tired a lot of the time, and you are pushing your body through the limits every day, but didn't feel right. I was getting ill quite a lot. So I spoke to the doctor and he's like, well, let's get a blood test. So found out I had glandular fever. And at the time I was like, what is this? I'd never really heard of it. And one of my first questions, it was, well, how's it going to affect my swimming? What can I still train? And thinking of the swimming side of it, how it was going to affect me. And then from there, really, it was very difficult. Like I talk about it a bit, but I was getting tonsillitis every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And it's not just like having a sore throat. Like I was in bed with a fever, like just couldn't move out of my bed for a few days. And then I'd try and get back into training. And then a couple of weeks later, or a few weeks later, I'd be ill again with a chest infection. And then I'd be back in bed again. So it was just a lot of broken up training, and I tried to get through it. I tried to kind of manage myself. Obviously just trying to look after my body a bit more, sleeping a lot more, resting. But it was a difficult time. And I think I just wanted to be at the Olympic trials. I really wanted to go to the London Olympics. And that was just in the back of my mind, that I just wanted to try and be healthy for that. But it was a tough year in the lead up to the trials, but turned up and I actually achieved the qualifying time to go, but I came fourth. And back then they only took the top two. So I was absolutely gutted. And it was a really difficult time for me, a really kind of dark time for me. I think obviously when you're involved in sport, it feels like the world, it feels like absolutely everything. I was just absolutely gutted. And it took me a bit of time. My mum and dad, the first thing we did, bless them, they booked a holiday for us all to go on, and we just went and sat in the sun and just tried to take my mind off it. And it was really tough. And I think also seeing your teammates, your friends that have qualified and are so happy because they get to go to the Olympics, and you're sat thinking, but I've not made it, I'm absolutely gutted. the home Olympics is obviously once in a lifetime. It's like not just going to happen like every day or next year. It's just not going to happen. But took a few months away from the sport, and by this I mean I didn't even look at a pool, I didn't train, I just tried to take my mind off everything and completely relax. But you know, it's one of those things. I think I had a lot of encouragement from family, friends, like, come on, you can do it. But the Olympics is only every 4 years, so it's not like, oh, I can train again and I can try and make it next year or in 2 years. You've got to think, I've got to dedicate my life for another 4 years. And as much as the people saying you can do it, come on, I had to be the one that got in to do all the training. I had to be the one to do all the early mornings again and put myself through it. So after a few months out, and obviously watching the Olympics on TV as a spectator and as a sports fan, that was tough, but I absolutely love watching sports, so I wouldn't have missed that. But then got back in the water, and I did just have this I had my tonsils removed actually as well, which helped a lot. But I did just have this newfound drive. I'd do the hardest session on the board. Sometimes you've got a few options. I put myself in the distance lane. I'd do the hardest sets. I would always just want to do extra. I'd ask my coach, can I do more at the end? Can I do more of this? And I had this kind of newfound drive, determination that I just didn't want to miss out again. I didn't want that to happen again, where I was sat watching on TV, where I was seeing all my friends and stuff that had qualified and having the best time, and I was sat. So at times it was quite tough, because I think that probably paid where I got a bit too caught up in it, and I didn't want to eat bad things, and I didn't want to, and if I had a bad session in the pool, I'd be beating myself up about it. So it was quite intense, I think, because I had this kind of sat on my shoulders. So that was really the kind of 2012 story. And each year I'd just be another year closer or another month closer, just to try and qualify to go to Rio. So it was a tough time, and looking back, that's probably the hardest part of my career. Well, it's definitely the toughest part of my career, is missing out on the London Olympics. And but when I look back, I'm actually like, would I change it? Would I have done it different? Obviously I would have loved
to ask you that.
Would I have changed it? And obviously I would have loved to have gone to the London Olympics, but it changed me. It made me a different person. It really kind of allowed me to push myself even further. And as much as sad as it is not going to a home Olympics, would I have got my results in Rio if I hadn't of? I'm not 100% sure, but you know, it's all part of the journey. I think you really appreciate your high moments and the really good ones, when you've had to overcome something as low and
something that's hard. It's funny, like it's everyone who I've spoken to who's had a form of hardship has gone out and it's like a bouncing ball hitting the floor. They've hit the floor and gone through the roof because they've had to. There hasn't been the option. I mean, I never played at that level you did in sport, but I had the similar with being injured. The only thing that drove me was my head. I was told I wouldn't do it, and I did it. It was purely because I would never change that, even though there's things that came from that I would. That is one of the defining moments of my career is that you can't quit. And it's super impressive and hard stubborn-headedness of you to be able to just go, right, I'm back in the game. Because it is 4 years. It's not like 4 months. It's not like, don't worry, it's okay. You just went, right, I've got 4 years. Let's do it. And it's so commendable, as I said, when people who hear of the achievements after you've had that form of suffering will then understand that actually sometimes I think they could actually relate to that in this situation of this could be the toughest time for someone they've ever visited.
Yeah.
It could also be the best thing they've ever had happen to them, because it made everyone stop and reevaluate. And it's like you had something which is very sport objective, but I think from an absolute standpoint, you've said something there that people should really, really take on board. Not all the swimming stuff's massively important, and all the youth development and everything that's going to come up with it. But from this is my line in the sand. This is what I'm going to do, and I think that'd be something that I'll take away from obviously knowing you. Is that's the defining factor of who you are. And then let's go through your wins. I think we'll go through the Commonwealth Games and Rio, and then as in how that came about, and then we'll go through your current mission about what's going on with Swim with Jazz and stuff.
Yeah, so I think obviously coming out of missing out on London, my confidence was knocked massively, and yeah, it's even going to competitions, I was kind of setting myself goals that were just, I should have been reaching a lot higher. I think I kind of thought, oh, I can only achieve this, and it was a bit lower down. So confidence was not massively, and that did hurt me for a while. And then the following year, I actually went to the World Championships, managed to qualify, and I guess was hit with another disappointment. I came fourth, 0.14 of a second off the bronze medal. And like, again, absolutely gutted. I thought I'd failed again. Yeah, it was a difficult time. I think I'd seen it as a massive failure, but when I look back, I'm like, you missed out on the Olympics the year before, and you managed to come away fourth at the World Championships, to be fourth in the world the next year. It was definitely a step in the right direction, but again, I guess it was just fueling more to work harder. It was that kind of, I don't want that to happen again. And even things like, people might find it quite intense, but I set my screensaver as like fourth place. So like when I'd wake up in the morning, I'd see like, you don't want to be missing out again. Yeah, the following year was actually probably the year that made the biggest difference to my career. It was the Commonwealth Games and the Europeans. 3 months before the Commonwealth Games, my coach that I'd worked with, that I'd moved towards when I was 16, he told me he was moving to Australia. So that was kind of like a big shock. Right before the Commonwealth Games, I'm like, what do I do? How do I train? So I went over to Australia, trained with him for 6 weeks. And then, then came back, and then kind of had to coach myself really for 6 weeks in the lead up to the Commonwealth Games. Wrote a lot of the sessions myself. And I knew my body better than ever. I knew which sets I loved, which sets really tested me, which sessions I needed to do to be fast. It was really just about kind of keeping it going, keeping the momentum going, because I felt like I was in great shape. That was, looking back, one of the years where I probably did some of the best sessions of my life was in 2014. I did some really good training sessions. But that year managed to come away with Commonwealth Games gold and 2 golds at the European Championships. So that was probably the year that grew my confidence. It made me think I can compete with the best in the world, and I can win medals. I can really be up there and be in with a chance of going to Rio. So I think that definitely was a bit of a sign, thinking I can do this, which just gave me confidence going into Rio. But obviously with my coach that had moved to Australia, it wasn't really an option for me to move to Australia with funding, and obviously you're over the other side of the world with competitions and things like that. So that was tough. So made the decision to move to Bath University and work with the coach here, David McNulty, who I'd been on a few camps with and been competitions with, and I thought his personality was great. I thought he's just got a lot of energy that I really appreciate, and I think that would have really helped me and brought the best out of me. That's where it kind of started. I moved my life again to Bath, and at first it was a huge shock. I think going from working with Bud from like a youngster, and my old coach was very relaxed, and it was quite an adult program where if he wasn't going to necessarily push you to the most, it was down to you to push yourself, which was great for me, because it made me kind of grow up, and I had to take control, and I had to take ownership that I had to push myself in training. And Dave's very different. He's quite a fiery personality. He's very passionate, very loud, wants to push you, wants to find your weak spots, and he will push them, and he will keep pushing until you kind of are like, I can't go anymore. So took a lot of time to get used to, but I think once we'd kind of found that relationship and got to know each other more, what he expected of me as an athlete, and how I kind of expect to coach, and what to push me, which ways to push me to get the most out of me. So it took a bit of time, but heading into Rio, I was definitely kind of feeling confident. I'd done loads of work in training. I knew that I'd done absolutely everything. So I think standing on those blocks, I was just the most confident I've ever been. And working with Dave and the support staff, I knew I'd done everything, from my nutrition, my physio, my psychology, absolutely everything I'd done as best as I could. So I think that's what gave me the most confidence in Rio.
Wow. It is. And you said that was just everything behind that one race, the amount of work that went into you as a person. as well as a drive from yourself. I mean, obviously, there's not many people who have the capacity to be able to just be that guy and just keep banging the door and banging the door and banging the door. And obviously, you got 2 medals in Rio, and I think that leads us on really well into sort of what you're doing now, because from a swim with jazz perspective, like with all this knowledge that you've learned there, and I mean, I've written down of just key words that you see in every sport context, business context, about resilient and energy and ownership and this kind of stuff. Let's go into what Swim with Jazz is all about and what your new mission is, because obviously leaving professional sport is hard, but you found the next part of your life, which is also massively commendable.
Yeah, so I guess being an athlete, being a swimmer, I've visited lots of swimming clubs and schools and always meet a lot of swimmers. And I felt like obviously you go and you try and answer as many questions as you can, but everyone's always got so many questions, and how do you deal with nerves, or what do you eat before you race, and all these things. And I kind of walk away and I'm like, oh, if only I could actually answer all those questions, or there wasn't enough time. And also just seeing a lot of people kind of drop out from the sport at a young age without really having the support. And obviously when you get to the elite level in most sports, especially in swimming, you kind of get access to the physios, the nutritionists, the strength and conditioning, the psychologists, and all the bits. You kind of get that support to try and get the best out of your performance. And I was thinking, well, really, I want to be able to give people any support that I can. I want it to bring it down so anyone can access it. Anyone can have that support to help improve their swimming. And for me, it's a big passion of mine just to be able to help people in swimming, to be able to help them reach their potential and help them achieve their dreams, I guess. I wanted to give people the opportunity to learn from like world-class experts. So I brought in like a team of world-class experts in their field, you know, that know the sport, that know exactly what they're talking about. Obviously with nutrition, psychology, physio, we've got you on, Will, with the strength. So I've brought it down so anyone can access it through their laptops. They can have access to all the support to help improve their swimming. I've done a lot of the swimming side of it, so the training plans. I've done a lot of things that I've experienced and talking about my journey, but also just bringing in people to give you support, to work on your shoulder stability, to improve your core, all those little things that make such a big difference. And I think sometimes we actually expect to get results doing the same thing every day, or just turning up to swimming and just doing the same thing. Whereas really, if we think about all the things that we can actually do, are we fueling right for our sessions? Are we getting in recovery? Are we doing pre-pool and making sure that our bodies are ready to go when we get in the pool? Are we doing everything on land to make sure that we're strong enough to hold ourselves in the water? So there's so many different things that you can actually do, and so many people walk away because they're not improving. Whereas really, if you think about all the things that you can actually make a difference with, it can make such a big change to the sport. So yeah, it's a big passion of mine. It's been very daunting for me, I think, coming away from elite sport where your kind of lifestyles are led a lot, where you get sent a weekly plan, you kind of know where you've got to be here and there, you kind of just follow what your coach says, what you're doing, follow the support team. And actually, I guess being in charge of me and all the things I want to do, it's taken a bit of transition to kind of get used to that, and I still feel like I'm learning a lot. I mean, I studied business at school, but things change, and when you're actually in the world and trying to learn and be the best, it's a completely different ball game. And for me, it's just about being able to support and offer people as much help with their swimming, with their sport, and help them achieve their dreams. If they've got goals and dreams they want to achieve, no matter how big or small they may seem, I want to be on hand to kind of give them that support. So it took a while to get used to and a long time to build and get it right. But no, it's been great, actually. I'm loving it. At days sometimes I feel a bit overwhelmed by it all, that I don't really know quite what I'm doing with the business side of it. I guess now I feel like I've kind of started at the bottom, and I'm looking to other people for support and advice with the business side of it. I'm reading more books, I'm looking at more articles, I'm trying to just get myself maybe in at the deep end, you know, and just trying to learn from all these different people in the business terms. But no, it's been going well. It's really exciting, and just want to be able to make a difference, I think.
No, that's awesome. It's refreshing as a coach. Obviously, I'm more from a strength and nutrition perspective, but as a person who's been in sport all my life, and I've dealt with kids in high schools, and I've seen what happens, especially in swimming. I think because it's quite an insular sport, because once you're in the pool, you're on your own, and it is very, very much the technical side of things, and it's very much about paces and understanding the body, etc. Until you get to the elite level, you are then doing your own psychology, like you did yourself. You push yourself when you were younger to get somewhere. Your own nutrition. You don't actually quite I mean, the common Western diet is not one built to produce elite level athletes. It's there from a World Health Organization just to keep you healthy, but most of it probably isn't keeping people healthy. And all the people that you've got involved have been there and got a lot of t-shirts in the respect of who they've worked with and what their knowledge base is, and for what you offer, it's not alienating anybody, which is, you can see it in the way that you've trained your whole career, which has been enlightening for me, is like you're happy to put yourself on the chopping block and have a dig. And I think like it's hugely important for anyone who's not just in swimming, but who is into youth sport, or who wants to be competitive in a business environment, is understanding that you got to just take action. You got to get in amongst it and figure it out. So it's promising, and as I say, I'm happy I'm part of your journey on that as well, because it's cool for me to be in the sport. And myself, obviously, I'm not, don't ask me to swim very fast, even though I have been a swimmer at Rachel's place, just putting it out there. And then last question I was going to say, I ask people is, who do you look up to, or who did you look up to when you were obviously competing, and who do you look up to now? If you could elaborate on them.
I think it's a bit of a difficult one. When I was younger, I think I would always be looking up to, I remember kind of Kelly Holmes, Paula Radcliffe, and a lot of the swimmers, like at a younger age, I was thinking, oh wow, I'd love to achieve that. And I guess you just naturally form those kind of people that you look up to, and one of them, as a youth swimmer, was my coach. He was just a huge inspiration for me. He'd always kind of know how to push me in the right way, and turned into a really good friend of mine. But for now, I think just in terms of, I just try and learn as much as I can. I think it's kind of like being a sponge, and you just want to absorb as much information from as different people, and listen to different podcasts, and read books, and find out so many different things. And I think we should never really stop learning and stop finding out things, because I think it definitely makes such a big difference, and to grow and change and be able to adapt as well. So I think it's quite difficult now, but I think just in terms of business, I try and read, learn, watch, listen as many different people and experiences as possible, because I think it can make a big difference when you can hear it from so many different sides. So that's probably, I think, who I would say.
No, awesome. Nice. That's epic. Well, thank you very much for your time, Tia. We've hit 40 minutes. I think if you just say where people can find your site, obviously your personal information. The guys over here in Singapore, they can get on my Instagram and they can find you. Where's the best place to sort of find your new stuff?
Yeah, so the website is www.swimwithjazz.co.uk, jazz with 2 Z's. On my social medias, there is Jazz Carlin or Swim with Jazz, and they've got all the stuff. And I'm just trying to, I guess, get people through this time as positively as we can. Build people up and just support them as much as possible. I think one thing now is kind of, it's great, it's bringing a lot of people together and that support. So I just want to be able to help as many people as I can through this and beyond, because there will be a time where we will be able to do all our things again. We will be able to set ourselves new goals, and I think it's going to get back to normal. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, this is the prep phase for anybody who's trying to improve. Is sit back, listen, and learn once you've got the time. Because when you haven't got the time, you've prepared for whatever you're trying to. How you said, prepared for your swim or prepared for life. So I think it's really important. Thank you very much, darling. Awesome. And that's it.